Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Zuhara binti Hafizi and my matrix number is 1250908. So today I'll be talking about an appeal case from Court of Appeal Putrajaya in the case of kaliaman anak perempuan Sinasami against Majlis Agama Islam Wilayah Persekutuan Jawi and others. In this presentation, I will be talking about the introduction, objectives, facts of the case, issue, judgment, provisions, discussion and conclusion. This case highlights the jurisdictional boundaries and limitations between the Civil Court and the Syariah Court under Article 121A of the Federal Constitution. The appellant, which is kaliaman anak perempuan Sinasami, who was the wife of the deceased, which is Murti anak lelaki Madya, sought declarations regarding the deceased's religious status and burial rights. This case involves the issue in dual legal systems, conflict of jurisdiction, and the rights of non-Muslims when Islamic law is involved. The objective of this presentation is to analyze the jurisdictional conflict between the Civil High Court and the Syariah Court. Second, to acknowledge the role of Article 121A of the Federal Constitution in a case that involves Islamic matter. And lastly, to explain how the court come up with the judgment. Now, let's move on to the facts of the case. The appellant and the deceased were married under Hindu customs, but the deceased had allegedly converted to Islam in November before his death in December. So, the appellant filed a claim to High Court. The priors were, first, she claimed that she was the valid wife of the deceased. Second, she demanded that the deceased's body have to follow Hindu burial. And third, she claimed that all the documents of the conversion were void. While the defendant, which is Majlis Agama Islam Wilayah Persekutuan Jawi, obtained an ex parte order from the Syariah High Court. This order declared that the deceased was a Muslim and should be buried based on Muslim burial. Consequently, the High Court held that it granted one of the appellant's prayer, which is that she is the lawful wife of the deceased. However, the High Court dismissed other prayers, saying that High Court had no jurisdiction in matters concerning the religion of Islam. So what is the issue in this case? The issue in this case is that whether the High Court has jurisdiction to determine the deceased's religious status or whether such matters fall under the jurisdiction of the Syariah Court according to Article 121A of the Federal Constitution. So we are going to take a look at the judgment in this case. The appeal was dismissed and the High Court's decision was affirmed. The Court of Appeal stated that High Court has no jurisdiction to determine the deceased's religious status. This is because Islamic status falls under the jurisdiction of Syariah Court and not Civil Court. We can see that it is clearly stated in Article 121A of the Federal Constitution that separates the jurisdiction between the Civil Court and the Syariah Court. The original case in High Court of Kuala Lumpur held that the appellant is the lawful wife of the deceased and dismissed other prayers. The judge gave reasoning, saying that the matters fall within Islamic law and the Civil Court does not have the jurisdiction to hear cases regarding Muslim matters. Now, moving on to the provisions that were used and stated in the case of kaliaman anak perempuan Sinasami against Jabatan Agama Islam Wilayah Persekutuan Jawi and others. The main provision was definitely Article 121A of the Federal Constitution. The article stated that civil courts shall have no jurisdiction over matters within the purview of the Syariah courts, which handle Islamic law matters for Muslims, creating jurisdictional complexities and ongoing legal debates over the scope of each court's power, especially concerning family law, conversion and property disputes involving Muslims. Second is List 2, which is state list in item 1. It stated that the jurisdiction of the Syariah courts only governs persons professing Islam, instead the matters related to Islamic law. And the last provision is Administration of Islamic Law, Federal Territories Act 1993, Act 50549. This act outlines the procedure for conversion to Islam, and the validity of the conversion falls within the jurisdiction of the Syariah court. For the discussion, this case highlights the complexities of Malaysia's dual legal system, as there is always an issue regarding the jurisdiction between the Civil Court and the Syariah Court. The dispute was not merely about burial rights, but it was also about constitutional interpretation, religious authority, and individual rights. The Court of Appeal's decision reinforces the principle that the matters concerning Islamic law fall exclusively under Syariah Court jurisdiction, as mandated in Article 121A of the Federal Constitution. This case also raises questions about justice for non-Muslims, as the appellant was left without civil remedy despite providing evidences in the affidavit, which suggests that the deceased was the practicing Hindu before his death. Hence, this shows a jurisdictional gap where civil courts cannot intervene, yet Sharia courts can only exercise authority over Muslims. The judgment also reflects a strict reading of Article 111A, where it prioritizes jurisdictional clarity over substantive justice. However, this case exceptionally illustrates the role of Article 111A to uphold the Syariah Court, where it strictly refused the intervention of civil court in matters within the jurisdiction of the Syariah Court. All in all, Malaysia adheres to the principle of constitutional supremacy, and all courts are bound to uphold the federal constitution. In this case, Article 111A was applied to ensure that matters concerning Islamic law remain under the exclusive jurisdiction of the Syariah Court. Any dispute involving civil matter and Islamic law must be resolved within the framework of the Constitution. Therefore, mechanisms should exist to guarantee fairness and access to justice for all citizens. That's all from me. Thank you.